Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Have you ever wondered if the shiny new gadget or vehicle you see around you, perhaps even your own, could one day become an unwitting cog in a global criminal machine, vanishing without a trace, only to reappear thousands of miles away? Today we're exploring a truly fascinating and, frankly, pretty unsettling development in the global economy, as brought to light by The Economist.
It really is unsettling when you start looking into it.
Yeah, the article describes this sophisticated new business flourishing surprisingly prominently right here in Britain. It starkly labels it Grand Theft Global Inc.
Right. And that name captures it well because this isn't just, petty theft.
No, exactly. It's not the opportunistic snatching you might picture. It's about a vast, highly organized export industry built entirely on stolen goods, operating on a huge international scale.
What's truly striking when you dig into this is the sheer ingenuity, really, and the scale involved. It's not just local opportunism or a few bad apples.
That sounds much bigger.
Oh, absolutely. It's an enterprise that has all the hallmarks of a legitimate global business. We're talking specialist service providers, efficient logistics, seamless communications, but it's all entirely illicit. It's like a parallel economy thriving in the shadows.
So let's really unpack this. The Economist paints this vivid and honestly quite concerning picture. You read about pedestrians in London glancing over their shoulders, or people putting old-school steering locks on fancy cars again.
Yeah, things you thought were long gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these aren't just isolated anecdotes, are they? They feel like symptoms of a significant and growing problem that's really impacting people's everyday lives, their sense of security.
They absolutely are symptoms. And the numbers, well, they're stark. They really put a spotlight on just how widespread this challenge is.
Give us a sense of that scale.
Okay, so last year alone, roughly 70,000 phones were snatched in London.
70,000.
70,000. Just think about that for a second. That's almost one phone for every 100 people living in the city.
Wow.
And to give you some global perspective, Britain actually accounts for a staggering 40% of all phone thefts in Europe.
40%. That's huge.
It is. And look, it's not just a British phenomenon. Other major cities are grappling with similar issues. Paris saw around 40,000 devices lost to theft last year. But the UK is clearly a significant focal point in this burgeoning criminal enterprise.
And it's certainly not confined to just phones, is it? Cars, especially the high-value ones, seem like an enormous target too, which for most of us feels like a far more audacious and frankly disruptive kind of theft.
Absolutely. Losing a phone is bad enough, but your vehicle disappearing.
Yeah, it's a whole different level.
Exactly. And cars are a huge part of this. Around 130,000 cars were stolen in Britain last year.
130,000. And that's up significantly, right?
Massively. It marks a truly staggering 75% rise in just a decade.
75%.
Wow.
And what kinds of cars are they targeting? Is it random?
Not at all random. SUVs are particularly popular targets.
Right.
And there's a very clear economic reason why. They're incredibly sought after for export.
Where to?
Places like the Gulf states and across Africa. Their robust nature, the higher ground clearance, their durability. It's all incredibly valued for navigating poor road conditions. So there's a very specific market driving these thefts. It makes them highly organized and profitable.
So this really isn't just about, snatching a phone or quickly hot wiring a car anymore. From what The Economist describes, it sounds like a genuine, sophisticated business model, this Grand Theft Global Inc., with its own incredibly efficient logistics and distribution. How truly organized is this? What does that even look like on the ground beyond the initial theft itself?
That's a critical question, and the answer is very organized. The process is chillingly efficient.
How so?
Well, thieves often use things like electric bikes for quick getaways. They're fast, quiet, incredibly maneuverable in cities.
Right.
Then, once a phone is snatched, it's quickly stashed in something called a Faraday bag.
A Faraday bag? What's that?
It's basically a special signal-blocking pouch. It makes the device invisible to network tracking almost instantly. Cuts off GPS, mobile signal, everything.
Oh, a sort of low-tech solution to a high-tech problem.
Exactly. And once stolen, these goods aren't just sitting around. They're systematically exported with remarkable speed.
Where do they go?
Most nicked phones end up in places like China and Hong Kong. The market there for used, often untraceable devices is massive. Cars, on the other hand, flow to destinations like the Democratic Republic of Congo, the UAE.
So it's a direct pipeline.
A very well-oiled machine connecting the point of theft in, say, London to a willing buyer halfway across the world.
And what's particularly insightful and maybe a bit counterintuitive is that the article suggests distance is actually a feature, not a bug in this model. Why ship something so far away?
That's a key insight. It's quite clever from their perspective. Moving goods far away makes them incredibly harder to trace and recover.
Okay, right. Out of sight, out of mind, essentially.
And out of jurisdiction. Many African countries, for example, simply lack the sophisticated capacity or maybe the resources to check every incoming vehicle against international databases of stolen cars.
And in places like China.
Well, the market for refurbished or gray market phones doesn't really make it difficult to sell stolen devices. Plus, this illicit market is incredibly responsive. The Economist highlights how, after severe flooding in the UAE damaged lots of cars in April 2024,
I remember that.
Britain's police saw a sharp uptick in SUV thefts in the following months.
Really? A direct link?
It points to a direct market response, an illegal supply chain reacting almost instantly to global demand. It's supply and demand just built entirely on stolen goods.
It's a chilling efficiency.
Yeah.
Almost like a dark reflection of legitimate global trade. And The Economist projects this problem is only going to grow. Why is that? What's fueling this long-term trend?
There are a few powerful forces at play here. Firstly, simple economics. As regions like Africa and Asia continue to develop, their populations get wealthier, and demand for expensive consumer goods naturally increases.
And cities like London are an easy source.
Exactly. Rich world cities offer a ready, abundant, and often relatively easy supply of desirable, nickable goods.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Well, compounding this is a significant systemic loophole. Many wealthy nations, surprisingly, hardly monitor their exports.
Really? They focus on imports but not exports.
Precisely. Heavy focus on what comes in, very little scrutiny on what goes out. This makes it incredibly easy for stolen items to leave their shores virtually unnoticed. And then there's a kind of moral hazard, maybe. The costs of Grand Theft Global, they get broadly distributed.
How so?
Through higher insurance premiums for everyone. Which means, ironically, no single entity, no individual, no insurance company, no specific government department feels enough acute pain to really tackle it aggressively and demand a proper solution.
So the cost is spread so thin, no one feels responsible for fixing it.
Exactly. It's a diffuse problem with no clear owner to champion the solution. That makes it particularly insidious and difficult to address effectively.
Okay, now, while The Economist's portrayal is compelling, here's where we really start to question some things. The article boldly states, Britain leads the world in this criminal business. But how true is that? Is Britain really the global leader of Grand Theft Global?
Yeah, that phrase definitely needs some careful nuance. It's an important point for critical interpretation. Look, the UK is undoubtedly a major node in this global network.
Right. Those London phone theft numbers.
Exactly. 70,000 phones, 40% of Europe's total. Those are stark figures. You could argue it's Europe's hotspot for phone theft by sheer volume.
World leader.
That's where it gets tricky. Interpol data clearly shows this is a truly global phenomenon. You have distinct flows like Canada to West Africa. Other EU countries are also significant sources and transit hubs.
So it's not just us.
Not by a long shot. The idea of Britain being a clear leader might partly be an artifact of, say, how we measure and report these crimes compared to other nations, or maybe just the sheer concentration of desirable goods here.
But it's more accurate to see the UK as
a key exporter hub within a wider, deeply interconnected global system, rather than a singular, unrivaled leader. It's part of a global tapestry, maybe a prominent thread, but still part of a larger picture.
That's a crucial distinction. Okay, another point. The article seems to somewhat dismiss manufacturer responsibility. It suggests a simple regulatory fix does not exist for phones or cars. Is that really the case? Have manufacturers hit a wall?
That's a fair question, and again, the picture is a bit more complex than The Economist perhaps implies. While tech evolves rapidly and criminals are always adapting, it's probably inaccurate to suggest there's no fix or that manufacturers are doing nothing.
So they are doing things.
They are making strides, yes. Quite significant ones, actually. Take cars. New cars sold in the EU and UK now have to meet these UNES R155, R156 cybersecurity rules.
R155 and R156, what are they?
They're new international standards. They came in for new vehicle types from 2022, and they apply to all new vehicles sold from July 2024. They're specifically designed to harden vehicles against digital attacks, like those keyless entry hacks that have become so common.
Okay, so that's happening on the car front. What about phones?
Well, think about Apple's stolen device protection, which they introduced with iOS 17.3. That added significant biometric checks and time delay roadblocks if a thief tries to change critical settings or access sensitive data, especially away from familiar locations.
And does that work?
It demonstrably cuts the resale value and makes the phones harder to wipe and reuse. So the bigger gap here isn't necessarily a lack of solutions or regulations. It's more about the slow, uneven adoption across the industry. And crucially, the continued vulnerability of the huge number of older vehicles and phones already out there.
Right. Criminals target the weakest link.
Always. They target the path of least resistance.
Okay. And on the tools used for these thefts, like those relay jammers or the CAN bus, Game Boy devices that unlock cars, The Economist calls for criminalizing their possession. But hasn't policy already moved on that? Is the article a bit behind the curve here?
You're absolutely right to point that out. That's a crucial clarification. Policy has shifted significantly. Since February 2025, the possession and distribution of these electronic car theft devices, the relay jammers, the CAN bus tools, has been explicitly banned in the UK.
That's a serious offense.
Very. Carries a penalty of up to 5 years in prison. So the constraint now isn't the law itself. The statute is firmly in place. The challenge is effective enforcement.
What does that mean in practice?
It means effective marketplace enforcement to stop them being sold online so easily. It means successful prosecutions of those caught using or supplying them. And it means proactive, intelligence-led seizures to get them off the streets. The law is there. The challenge is making it bite.
Right. Finally, the article mentions clamping down on electric bikes, suggesting they're ideal getaway vehicles. Now, that seems plausible, but is that the most effective strategic approach? Or is it, again, maybe chasing symptoms rather than the core problem?
That's another really important point to consider. While e-bikes and mopeds certainly enable snatch thefts, they're fast, quiet, they can weave through traffic, and the Met Police even have specific units trying to counter them.
Right.
Focusing solely on them risks, well, symptom chasing. These vehicles are tools, yes, but they're not the root cause.
Which is?
The true profit engine for this whole enterprise remains the international resale market. Without disrupting those lucrative export routes, without systematically devaluing stolen goods abroad, tackling street-level methods, whether it's e-bikes or something else, becomes just a holding action.
Like mopping the floor while the tap's still running?
Exactly. It doesn't address the core business model that makes these thefts so profitable in the first place.
Okay, so it seems some of the economists' suggestions might be a bit behind the times or maybe not targeting the real drivers, which makes you wonder, what would actually change the equilibrium here? The article mentions know your customer at the border, maybe face IDs for booking containers. Is that the silver bullet?
Not really a silver bullet, no. And it's important to understand why. It sounds appealing, sure, but exporters in the UK already need an EORI number. That's the Economic Operator Registration and Identification Number, basically a unique ID for businesses trading internationally.
Okay, so there is an ID system.
Yes, and they need detailed documentation for shipments too. The weak link isn't the absence of ID or paperwork. It's the vanishingly low outbound enforcement capacity at the ports.
Vanishingly low.
Reports point to really threadbare staffing and container checks as low as, well, less than 0.005% at major hubs like Felixstowe.
0.005%. That's almost nothing.
It's incredibly low, less than 5 containers checked out of every 100,000. So without significantly more officers, better data analytics, truly targeted risk-based exams, just adding extra KYC hurdles would mostly add friction for legitimate businesses.
And potentially slow down trade.
Exactly. And ironically, even if you introduce fees for container exams, that can create a disincentive for ports to actually inspect them. The problem isn't a lack of rules, it's a lack of eyes and resources to enforce the ones we have, especially on goods leaving the country.
So if adding more paperwork isn't the answer, what does this all mean for making a real impact? Where should efforts be focused to truly disrupt grand theft global Inc?
It means we need to target the actual points of vulnerability and, crucially, the profit, not just the visible symptoms on the street. First, and this is absolutely key, make stolen phones harder to monetize anywhere in the world.
How?
By pushing for universal IMEI blocking, that's the unique ID number on every phone. We need much wider operator participation globally in the GSMA device registry blacklist.
That's the global database of stolen phones.
Exactly. And then critically, we need robust international negotiation. We need to talk to key destination countries, Algeria, the UAE, China, Hong Kong, and get them to systematically adopt and use that database for customs checks.
And tech companies.
They can help too. Implement deeper cloud service lockouts tied to the IMEI and the phone's lost mode. Make it so the phone is essentially a brick if it's reported stolen. If it's worthless, it's not worth stealing.
That makes perfect sense. Devalue the stolen goods. What about the physical stuff, the cars, the other high-value items shipped in containers?
For those, we need a fundamental shift in how we view our outbound ports. Treat them like financial crime risk hubs, not just places things pass through.
What would that look like?
It means funding dedicated outbound enforcement teams at the major ports, Felixstowe, London Gateway, Southampton, setting clear, ambitious targets for risk-based inspections way beyond that 0.005%.
How do you target them effectively?
Use the data we have. Rapid DVLA markers flagging stolen vehicles, intelligence on repeat shipper routes known to be problematic, target destination risk lists. Combine that data to focus inspections where they're most likely to find stolen goods.
And maybe some kind of trusted trader scheme.
Potentially, yes. Piloting something like a verified exporter program for those dealing in high-risk commodities, bulk used electronics, vehicles could add real teeth, similar to the known consignor scheme in aviation security. Tighter auditing, revocable status if things don't add up. It creates an incentive for compliance.
And what about the cars themselves and the theft tools? How do we close that loop?
That's essential too. It's like closing a triangle. First, rigorously enforce that new ban on relay jammers and CAN bus devices. Aggressive online marketplace takedowns, targeted warrants, and actually measuring seizures and prosecutions quarterly to see if the ban is working.
Make the law stick.
Exactly. Then leverage those new UNES R155, R156 regulations we talked about. Push manufacturers for rapid over-the-air software fixes, not just for new models, but maybe even for legacy ones still in production where possible.
Like what kind of fixes?
Things like making motion-sensing key fobs standard, the ones that go dormant if left still. Pushing for ultra-wideband, UWB, unlock protocols, which are much harder to spoof than older tech. Stronger CAN bus hardening to block those Game Boy-style attacks.
And linking this back to the ports.
Absolutely. Expand port holds triggered by real-time stolen vehicle markers from the police or DVLA. Align these with Interpol SMV stolen motor vehicle checks for outbound containers. Catch them before they sail. Create multiple layers of defense.
These all sound like powerful, targeted interventions. But the final piece, maybe the hardest, how to get everyone on the same page? Aligning interests, government, ports, manufacturers, insurers, us as consumers.
That's exactly right. Aligning incentives is absolutely key to making any systemic change stick. And yes, it's often the hardest part.
So how could that work?
Well, for ports, maybe consider exam fee waivers or even government subsidies specifically for targeted outbound inspections, so they aren't financially penalized or slowed down for doing the right thing by opening suspicious boxes.
Make it easier for them to do the checks.
Right. And for us, for consumers, you could tie insurance discounts directly to having specific anti-theft measures, steering locks, approved trackers, maybe even verified stolen device protection activation rates on phones.
So reward prevention.
Exactly. Shift some of the prevention costs to where the benefits accrue. Engage the public in the solution, make it a shared responsibility. When it hits your wallet directly, even slightly, people tend to pay more attention and take action. It's about making prevention a win-win.
So thinking about the article again, while The Economist is absolutely right about the globalized nature of this supply chain and the UK's pivotal role within it, it seems it really undersells the powerful levers we actually have available through platforms, international networks, targeted port enforcement.
That's right. It's those specific avenues collapsing resale value, interdicting exports that can really make a dent rather than just, chasing symptoms like e-bikes on the street.
So the bottom line is?
The bottom line seems clear. If ministers properly resource outbound port security, if we expand global IMEI blocking effectively, and really lean on vehicle and phone manufacturers to harden their systems, all backed up by that new tool ban legislation and the UNEC regulations, then Grand Theft Global suddenly becomes a much riskier, much less profitable business than it is today. And that benefits all of us.
It really makes you think. Considering how interconnected our world is and how much of this crime relies on a global demand side for cheap, stolen goods, what's our collective responsibility here as consumers, as tech users, as citizens? How much should we be thinking about disrupting these criminal markets, even when the immediate cost isn't directly on us, but maybe just subtly reflected in something like our insurance premiums? Thanks for listening. Follow us to stay updated with the latest insights on The Economist every day, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.